Hi, crafties, and welcome to Weekend Crafting Adventures. I'm Kim. And before I get started with the crafting project, I just really want to say thank you. Whether you have been listening to my podcast episodes and learning about my experiences using the Cricut machine and all of these different crafting projects, I so appreciate you. And I just appreciate the support that I have received on social media through Instagram and through Facebook. It's been amazing. So thank you so much for helping create and being part of this amazing crafting community, this Cricut crafting community. But overall, I just want to say that I have been learning so much through all of these projects. And if you are listening once in a while or to every episode, I appreciate you. Let me get into this crafting project for this week. This week, I am using a new vinyl that I just found. It is a sublimation matte white vinyl that I am going to use to put some infusible bright colored designs, infusible ink designs onto some dark cotton t-shirts. Let me tell you about the inspiration behind this crafting project. I have been doing a lot of pretty intense, in-depth, long projects lately, and I just felt like I needed to change it up a bit and go with a vinyl I've never used, and this sublimation vinyl really caught my eye. I love the idea of being able to use sublimation infusible ink, the bright colors that come with that material onto some darker colored t-shirts that are not necessarily all polyester, which typically if you are going to do a sublimation ink into a blank, what I have experienced is that blank material or whatever you're doing has to be a lighter color, and it also typically has to be mostly polyester. I think there can be a little bit of cotton, but I really love the feel of a cotton t-shirt. And so this is why I'm super excited about sharing this project with you. So let me highlight a couple of the materials that I needed for this project. Really, for me to do this project, the only additional materials that I needed above and beyond what's in my crafting corner was the sublimation heat transfer vinyl. And I did find that I chose to use one from HTVRONT, and it is a matte white sublimation vinyl. So I needed to pick that up. And then I also needed to decide what kind of design I wanted on my t-shirts. So I went with kind of a bright color tie-dye looking infusible ink sheet. So those were the two things that were above and beyond that I didn't have in my crafting corner. Of course, I chose to use some dark cotton t-shirts that I already had lying around. So you'll need some sort of base material to do this project, but I had my t-shirts lying around. So let me talk a little bit about really the only resource that I used to do this project. I've used vinyl before, I've cut vinyl before. I didn't really have to do a lot of research about how to put it on t-shirts because I've done it before, which is kind of nice when you're walking into a project. It just kind of, you walk in with a little more confidence. But two really important resources were the information from the specific vinyl and the specific infusible ink sheets that I used to complete this project. And I'm really going to highlight that because I use a lot of different materials when I'm crafting. I use a lot of different vinyls. I still haven't found like my one go-to for heat transfer vinyl or infusible ink. So I'm still kind of trying out a bunch of different ones to see where I can find my go-to. But because of that, I really have to take the time to read read the specific instructions for how to cut and how to press those specific materials. So those resources were 2 handouts basically when I received the heat transfer vinyl, the sublimation heat transfer vinyl. It came with a beautiful instruction pamphlet, and that was key. And in terms of my infusible ink sheets, they also had very specific instructions on the back of their packaging as to how to use their product. So those were my resources for this project. So let me get into the experience of using this fun new heat transfer vinyl, sublimation heat transfer vinyl. The first thing I needed to do, of course, as in all of the projects that I've done, is to choose some designs. And I really decided to go with 2 simple designs. I wanted to make one t-shirt for me and one for my husband. And the designs I chose were both found in Cricut Design Space. I chose a simple heart design for my t-shirt, and for my husband I went with like a pine forest. Simple, easy designs that I thought would just look really cute on the front of a t-shirt. So the process of getting those designs ready to be cut for the heat transfer vinyl and the infusible ink sheets to be cut took a little bit of time. I did want to have the sublimation heat transfer vinyl. I did want to go with a little bit of an edge around my infusible ink design on the t-shirts. It is a personal style thing, and I just really thought that it would look great. So one of the most important things that I did read in my resource from my sublimation HTVRONT heat transfer vinyl was that it was really important to offset your design image for the base. The sublimation vinyl is what is going to be on the base of your material, whatever you're attaching your vinyl to. And they suggested to put an offset of 0.0984 around your infusible or sublimation ink design. So both of the designs that I did, I had to make sure that I used that offset function to create the background where my infusible ink is going to be attached and put on my t-shirt. Very easy process. I found it easiest just to highlight my design that was the original design of the heart and do the offset function and actually just go right into the little area where you can type in how much of an offset you wanted. Because the manufacturer was so specific about this in the directions, I wanted to make sure that I got the correct measurement. So that was really important in terms of what I was doing on Cricut Design Space to prep for this project. I sized out my designs the way that I wanted to size them for this project. And what I ended up doing was about a 7.5-inch or so heart. And then for my husband's t-shirt for the forest, I did want to make it a little bit bigger. But here's another really important thing. Because I am using the infusible ink, I needed to make sure that I could heat the infusible ink into the sublimation vinyl all in one time. So I wanted to make sure that design was smaller than my 9x9 easy press. That was important. But other than that, really, the sky's the limit. I did choose some simple designs because I really wanted the infusible ink on the dark t-shirt to be the star of the show. I didn't do very intricate designs. They're very simple and full, and that's the way I wanted it to be because I wanted those bright colors to really pop off the t-shirt. So cutting the sublimation vinyl, easy. Reading the sublimation vinyl, easy. With infusible ink, I did remember, and I have learned through past experience, that you weed that with your fingers and your hands. You're peeling and cracking. No weeding tools needed for that infusible ink, and the process was really easy. I have used it before, so I did have that experience to kind of help me with that. And then the part of layering that infusible ink design on top of the sublimation vinyl on the dark cotton t-shirt. So that's the next step. And that is where looking at those resources, those directions from the specific manufacturer of the material you're using is key. And I want to say that because what I very quickly became aware of was that I was going to be heat pressing my sublimation vinyl onto my t-shirt at 315 degrees for 10 to 15 seconds. That is very different than the infusible ink instructions. The infusible ink needs to be heated at 390 degrees for about 50 seconds. So very quickly, I picked up on the fact that my easy press was going to need to heat up to 315, and then I was going to need to wait in between putting on that infusible ink because I needed to heat all the way up from 315 to 390. And then to do my second t-shirt, I needed to bring that temperature back down. I did my t-shirts one at a time just because that's how I wanted to do it. You could just put all of your sublimation vinyl on your t-shirts and then go back and do your infusible ink. It's not how I chose to do this project, so I had to do the up and down of the temperatures. But I was really happy with how the sublimation vinyl went onto the t-shirt. It peeled off beautifully. And then I did get a little nervous about layering that infusible ink on. Infusible ink, I feel like, in my experiences with it, is a little more tricky than I think I thought it would be, and it continues to be a material that I really have to pay close attention to during the heating process. The best results have come with infusible ink and my projects when I am using the absolute correct temperature for the exact amount of time and consistent pressure over the entire design at once. I have not had good luck moving my heat iron around or doing one section and then another section. There's a lot of different things that I've experienced that kind of go wrong with infusible ink if you are not using that consistency that I just talked about. So that's something that I definitely know when I'm using infusible ink, I have to pay attention to those specific pieces in order to get the brightest, best results out of the ink. And I'm really thrilled with how my t-shirts came out. These colors are just bright and vibrant. They give just a different look than the vinyl does. And those of you that have sublimation printers and can create those designs all on your own, this is really a fun game changer for darker fabrics and putting sublimation onto them. So I'm really excited for you if you have one of those. I don't have a sublimation printer. I am still just using the ink sheets that I can find and buy out and about. I wish I could get a little more fancy with it, but that's not something I'm ready to dive into at this time. But boy, these results are awesome. The patterns that I used were like these fun tie-dye colors. And so I have this really cute heart on the front of my t-shirt with a bright tie-dye colors popping through. And like I mentioned before, that edge of white around it. I really like how that looks. It's kind of like a background that helps those colors pop. So it was an awesome project. It was quick. It was fun. There was not a lot of frustration. Things worked the way I thought they would, which is always fun. It took me, once I had everything cut out, it really took me about, I would say, 15, 20 minutes to do 2 t-shirts, which is pretty awesome. And I love the results. My first crafting keeper for this episode, for me, it's a really small little tip, but it's something that I used a lot during this crafting project, just in terms of the heat press. Like I said, the temperatures between what I needed for the sublimation vinyl and what I needed for the infusible ink were drastically different. And the best way that I have found to help my heat press cool down quickly is there's the square base and the square heat press. All I do is I set my temperature from the 390 back to the 315, and instead of putting my heat press right down into that base in the square, I just kind of twist it like at a 45-degree angle. And what that does is it kind of keeps the heat press from going all the way down into the base. It gives it that air around it, and it just really helps my heat press cool down to that lower temperature faster. My second crafting keeper for this crafting project is something that I just have to keep reminding myself about, but it's super important, and it is making sure I take the time when I'm using a different material, a different manufacturer, a different kind of vinyl or infusible ink to really make sure I understand the cutting process and the heating process. Those things can ruin a project in about 2 seconds if you're not taking the specific information from those specific manufacturers and materials and putting them into use in your crafting project. So those are my crafting keepers for this crafting project. My satisfaction rating for this project is a 3. I'm gonna give it a 3 for a couple of reasons. The first one is that I've made t-shirts before, I've used vinyl before, I've used infusible ink before. There wasn't really anything new in terms of crafting skill or anything like that that I learned in this project. I had done all of those things before. It's just I was trying this really cool, fun new material and new vinyl that I'd never tried before. So I did really enjoy and love this sublimation heat transfer vinyl. I just think it is a game changer for the dark color fabrics that now we can add these beautiful, bright sublimation infusible ink designs to that continue to stay bright, that last a long time on your t-shirts or your bags or whatever it is that you're making with them. So that is my rating. It's a 3. I will definitely be using the sublimation heat transfer vinyl again. Highly recommend it. Can't wait to find some other fun sublimation ink designs to add on to some of my t-shirts. So that is my experience with this awesome new sublimation HTV and the infusible ink sheets. And if you have enjoyed listening to any of my podcasts, or you've tried any of these crafting projects or been inspired to take your Cricut off the shelf, please take the time and write a review on the podcast host site that you listen to. Shoot me an email. Check out my social on Instagram or Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. It would mean a lot to me as I continue this crafting adventure. And until next time, take care.
That's all for this episode of Weekend Crafting Adventures. Now go get that Cricut machine off the shelf and get crafty. For more information on this crafting project, interesting tips, tricks, and techniques, visit WCApodcast.com. Until next time, when we embark on another adventure.